This isn't just a story for clicks, it's a lesson. Learn from their mistakes so you don't repeat them.
You should apologize to Eric. You ruined something I'll never get back. She said it with a wine glass in her hand, her voice just loud enough to hush the clinking of forks and the polite backyard laughter. For a second, I thought she was still joking. Claire had been tossing those "remember Eric" jabs all evening like cheap confetti, but this one landed differently, harder, heavier. We were sitting under the new string lights I installed last weekend. Well, I installed while she complained about how I never surprise her anymore. 10 guests, 3 couples, one single woman who kept laughing too hard at everything Claire said. And now, silence, the kind that buzzes in your ears. You know the one. I took a sip of my bourbon, let it burn all the way down. Then I looked up at her and said, "All right, I'll go see him tomorrow." The way her smirk cracked, I should have taken a picture. You ever reach that moment where your mind just detaches? You're not angry anymore, not even embarrassed. You just slide the last puzzle piece into place and see the full picture. That's where I was. And before I go any further, if you're still listening and haven't hit that little red subscribe button, now's the time. It helps more than you think. And honestly, sharing stories like this keeps our team sane. Back to the moment. Claire blinked like she hadn't heard me right. "What?" "I'll go apologize to Eric," I repeated, setting my glass down. "Face to face, you're right. I did ruin something." A neighbor let out a weird cough, the kind that tries to disguise a laugh. I didn't look at him. I didn't look at anyone. Just kept my eyes on Claire and watched the color drain from her cheeks like wine spilling onto a white rug. She tried to laugh it off. "You're not serious?" But I didn't flinch, didn't blink. I just gave her a small, tired smile, the kind you give a kid who just figured out Santa isn't real. Very. Her hand tightened around the stem of the glass. "Greg, come on. You're being dramatic." "And you're being nostalgic," I replied. Apparently, permanently. She changed the subject after that, tried to redirect the conversation back to someone's new grill or the HOA drama over Christmas lights. But the mood had shifted. Everyone felt it, that metallic tension in the air when something unspoken is now very, very spoken. We ended the night early. She made an excuse about feeling lightheaded. Blamed the wine, even though she'd barely had half a glass. The moment the last guest stepped off the porch, she whirled around to face me. "You're not actually going over there," she snapped. I tilted my head. "Why not? You said I owed him an apology. I'm just being the bigger man." "Greg," she said, and her voice dipped into that patronizing tone she usually reserved for drive-through employees and nail techs. "You're twisting this." "No," I said. "You already twisted it. I'm just holding the mirror." She tried to follow me into the kitchen, but I shut the door, locked it. Not because I was mad, because I didn't want her watching me calmly pour myself another bourbon while Googling her ex's address. Yes, I had it saved. No, she didn't know that. Yet. She called my name twice. I didn't answer. Instead, I turned off the light and sat in the dark, sipping slowly, thinking about every time she'd brought him up in the past year. Every weird pause before saying his name, every not-so-casual mention of how he always knew how to make me feel wanted. Wanted. That word had festered in my brain like a splinter under the nail. The truth? I wasn't going over there to fix anything. I wasn't going to make peace. And Claire thought she was playing chess, but I had the board flipped for months, and she didn't even notice. The next morning, I shaved, dressed like I was heading to a real estate showing. Light blue shirt, clean slacks, polished shoes. Claire eyed me from the hallway. "You're not really—" "I am," I said, grabbing my keys. "You wanted resolution. I'm just giving you what you asked for. Greg, this isn't the way to—" But I was already out the door. She started walking alone at sunset. That's how it began. Said she needed to clear her head after work. I didn't argue, didn't press. I just nodded, took another bite of my overcooked steak, and marked the timestamp. 6:42 p.m. Tuesday. She left wearing mascara. Claire never wore makeup to walk. Next came the gym. Trying to feel better in my skin. She told me one night while folding laundry that suddenly didn't smell like our detergent. I agreed, encouraged her, even drove her there once. Then circled back 15 minutes later to find her car gone. Tracked her iPhone to a shopping plaza 6 miles away, not a treadmill in sight. I didn't explode. I bought a second phone. Burn number, anonymous email, prepaid, installed iCloud sniffer software, made a new Apple ID, and synced it with hers. She was logged into a shared calendar we hadn't used since 2017. Lazy. Convenient. You'd be amazed what people leave floating in the cloud. Deleted messages don't go far when you know where to look. I started pulling backups, logging chat threads, not just with Eric, but with 2 other names I hadn't heard since college. Men she once called harmless nostalgia. If nostalgia sends shirtless photos at 2 a.m., I guess I've been misusing the word. I documented, not just screenshots, but timelines. I printed photos, arranged text logs, stapled boarding passes she forgot to delete from her travel apps. Claire thought she was clever because she used Instagram's close friends feature. Guess who saw everything from a dummy account she once made fun of me for creating? Why are you following random people with 0 followers? Because I was preparing for war, sweetheart. But it wasn't all new. One night, about a month before the party, I stumbled onto something older, an email chain between her and Eric from 5 years ago, hidden in an archived folder. The subject line was, "Do you still think about that night?" They weren't just catching up, they were rewriting our history. He's so safe, too safe, like a security blanket I never asked for, she wrote in one. In another, she said, "Sometimes I wonder what life would have looked like if I'd gone with you instead. You always made me feel alive." Alive. That word again, like I'd been embalming her this whole time, not building a life. Meanwhile, I'm the one who fixed the leaking roof. I'm the one who paid off her student loans in 2012. I'm the one who sat through 4 Thanksgivings at her sister's house pretending her nephew wasn't a little sociopath in training. And still, somehow, I was safe. After I read those emails, I didn't cry. I didn't punch a wall. I poured myself a glass of tap water, went to the garage, and opened the locked filing cabinet I hadn't used since my consulting days. I started building folders, printed versions, chronological, cross-indexed, nothing digital. Thumb drives fail, paper doesn't. It wasn't about revenge yet, not then. It was about self-preservation. If she was going to rewrite our story, I wanted to make damn sure I had the original draft. I even went so far as to record a few of our conversations, not the screaming ones, the soft ones, the ones where she swore she was just tired or in a weird phase or trying to reconnect with herself. All while her phone buzzed quietly, face down on the kitchen island. I remember one night I asked her, "You ever miss who we used to be?" She smiled, all soft and tragic. "Sometimes, but maybe we just grew apart." And I smiled back. "Yeah, maybe." That night, after she fell asleep, I retrieved the little ceramic horse from her college keepsake box, the one Eric gave her. She'd once told me it meant nothing, that she kept it because it looked cool on the shelf. I wrapped it in a microfiber cloth, placed it in the folder labeled Past Echoes, and went to bed next to the woman already halfway out the door, in her heart. Funny thing is, she never noticed anything missing. Not the little horse, not the USB key I removed from her laptop bag, not the cloud backup alerts, the dummy Instagram likes, the flicker of recognition in my eyes when she mentioned an old friend out of nowhere. She thought I didn't care. What she didn't know was I did care. So much, in fact, that I built an entire vault of her betrayals before ever saying a word, because some men scream when they're cheated on. Others wait, they watch, and when the moment's right, they hand you the whole archive and let you bury yourself with it. The gate squeaked as I pushed it open. Paint was peeling off the sides. A ceramic frog sat lopsided near the porch, grinning up at me like it knew something. Claire always described Eric's place like it was some dreamy sanctuary, big windows, lots of light, good energy, but in person, it looked like what it really was. A cookie-cutter suburban home held together by nostalgia and over-leveraged credit. The bushes hadn't been trimmed in months. I parked 2 houses down, walked the rest of the way, slow and steady. My shirt was tucked, my collar clean. The sun was sharp, but I didn't wear sunglasses. I wanted full eye contact. When I rang the doorbell, I didn't flinch. Footsteps, then him. Eric stood in the doorway in gym shorts and a t-shirt with a faded college logo, looking like a man who'd spent the morning avoiding chores. His expression shifted fast, recognition, surprise, then confusion wrapped in a polite half-smile. "Greg?" I nodded once. "Morning." He stepped out slightly, arms crossed. Something wrong?" No, I said, matching his casual tone. "Just came to apologize." He blinked. "Apologize?" I let it hang there. Then I smiled, not a big one, a courtroom smile. "Sorry I didn't want you dating my wife. Guess I should have been more supportive." It took a second. You could see his brain trying to rewire the sentence into something less suicidal. Behind him, through the open space of the hallway, I saw her, Melissa. Brown hair in a loose bun, reading something at the kitchen table with a mug in her hand. She didn't hear the first part, but she looked up at the word wife. "Excuse me?" she called out. I raised my voice, not a shout, just enough to carry. "Just letting Eric know that Claire still wishes she'd ended up with him, thought he deserved to hear it. And you too." She stood. The mug hit the table a little too hard. Eric took a step forward. "Greg, what the hell is this?" "This," I said, calmly pulling a folded piece of paper from my inner pocket and handing it to him. "Just thought you'd appreciate the context. Page 2's the good part." I turned. He opened it. I heard it. The soft rustle of betrayal printed in 12-point Times New Roman. The silence behind me stretched like rubber, long, tense, ready to snap. I kept walking. I didn't go back to the car right away. I strolled past 3 more houses, stopped at a park bench under a birch tree and sat down, watched 2 kids argue over a scooter, watched a couple walk their golden retriever. 5 minutes later, my phone buzzed. Claire. Ignored it. Then again. Then a text. "What did you do?" I muted her. I sat there until the buzzing stopped, staring at the clouds moving like slow bruises across the sky. My heart wasn't racing. My palms weren't sweating. I didn't feel victorious. I felt nothing, which is what made it perfect. Because here's the truth no one talks about. When you really want to break someone, you don't scream, you don't hit, you don't rage. You show up to their little safe world with a smile, you light the match in front of their family, and you walk away while they try to stomp out the flames, realizing too late the gasoline was inside the house the whole time. I got back in the car. Claire called again. Voicemail this time. I didn't listen to it. Instead, I pulled into the grocery store 2 blocks from our house, picked up milk, eggs, toilet paper, something mundane, something normal, something that said, "This day wasn't about you, Claire." When I walked through the door, 20 minutes later, she was pacing. "You actually went to his house?" I placed the groceries on the counter. "Yep." "You talked to Melissa?" "Yep." She threw her hands up. "You're insane." "No," I said, pulling the milk from the bag. "You are, for thinking I wouldn't." Then I held up my phone. "Melissa already called you, didn't she?" Claire's mouth opened, closed. She couldn't decide which lie to commit to. I opened the fridge, put the milk away, then turned to her. "Want to keep playing, or want to see what I've been saving for a rainy day?" She stood frozen. I reached into the drawer, pulled out a brown envelope, slid it across the counter without a word. She didn't open it. She didn't need to. Her hands were already trembling. Claire's phone lit up on the kitchen island like it was warning her. She glanced at it once, just once, but her fingers didn't move. The name on the screen said everything. Melissa Harris. No emoji, no custom ringtone, just cold, default gray. She stood there, frozen, one hand gripping the countertop so hard her knuckles were white. The phone buzzed again, then went still. 5 seconds later, it lit up once more. This time, she answered. "Melissa, hey," Claire said, and I swear to God she tried to sound cheerful, like someone just calling back a friend after book club. There was a pause. Then Claire's shoulders locked up like she'd been hit with a tranquilizer dart. She turned away from me, pacing toward the hallway, but I could still hear her voice tighten. That's not what you think." Another pause, a longer one. Claire's head dropped slightly. No, it was just a stupid... Look, Eric and I barely even... Her voice cracked. "No, that picture's old. No, we weren't alone. There were people around. It wasn't like that." I didn't interrupt. I didn't move. I just leaned against the counter, arms folded, watching her spiral with surgical calm. She looked over at me once, eyes wide, terrified, pleading, and I simply walked to the office. When I returned, I was holding the folder, thick, manila, labeled in clean black Sharpie for your records. I set it on the table. Claire hung up 2 minutes later. She didn't say goodbye, just dropped the phone on the couch and stared at the envelope like it was radioactive. "What's that?" she asked, already knowing. I didn't answer, just nudged it closer. She hesitated, then opened it. First page, a printout of a text thread. Claire and Eric, flirting, light stuff, double meanings, hearts, the usual prelude to bad decisions. Second page, a set of screenshots. Instagram DMs hidden behind fake accounts. Her telling him, "I still think about you sometimes, mostly when he's out of town." Her breath hitched. Third page, an email with a timestamp. 2 months ago. Claire coordinating a business trip she never told me about. The hotel bar's name was circled in red. Fourth page, a grainy photo. Claire and Eric seated too close, her hand on his knee, a wine glass half full. She was smiling. The photo wasn't posed. Claire's hand flew to her mouth. "You were spying on me?" I tilted my head. "No." Her eyes shot up. "Then how did you—" "I was protecting myself." She slammed the folder shut. "This is insane. You went through my phone? You tracked me like some stalker?" I picked up the envelope and tapped it gently against my palm. "You lied to me. In my house. In my bed. You made me the villain for suspecting anything, and all the while, you were running to your ex like a teenager chasing her old prom night." She took a step back. "You don't understand what it's been like, Greg. You've been cold, distant." "No," I said. "I've been watching." She shook her head violently. "This is crazy. You're paranoid." "No, Claire, you're cornered." She opened her mouth to speak again, then stopped. You could almost hear the machinery in her brain stalling, gears stripped. Her lies, every one of them, had just met paper evidence, signed, dated, documented. She looked down again at the folder, at her own words in black and white. Her shoulders slumped. "I didn't mean for it to go that far," she muttered. "Sure you did," I replied. "You just didn't mean to get caught." She looked up. Her eyes searched my face, probably hunting for that last scrap of sympathy, a crack, anything soft. But I wasn't angry anymore. I was miles past it. My voice was steady, my hands still. "I warned you last year," I said. "You remember? I told you I felt something was off, that I wanted us to reconnect. You called me needy. You laughed." "I didn't laugh. You said I should be grateful someone like you stuck around." She flinched. I leaned closer, lowering my voice to a near whisper. "I've been preparing for this since that night." Claire took another step back. "You're not going to ruin me, Claire. You're not going to twist this around in therapy and say I was the one who suffocated you. You're not going to play victim at brunch. Not this time." She stood there, arms limp, folder clutched to her chest like a life raft, but the ocean was already swallowing her, and I hadn't even gotten to the money yet. Claire tried to act normal the next morning. Coffee, slippers, pretending to scroll through headlines while really checking if Melissa had unfriended her yet. She avoided eye contact, avoided the folder still sitting on the dining table like a loaded gun no one wanted to touch. But I knew what she was doing. She thought if she acted composed, if she waited 24 hours, I'd calm down and she could crawl back into control. She didn't realize she'd stepped into a game that already ended. I wasn't angry. I wasn't even negotiating. I was executing, and she was still reading the old rule book. Around 9 a.m., I heard her sharp intake of breath from the living room, a tiny gasp followed by frantic tapping on her phone screen. "You changed the password," she snapped, already rising to her feet. "For?" "The joint account." I didn't answer. She stormed over, phone in hand. "It says I'm locked out." "That's correct." "You can't just—" "I didn't," I said. "The bank did, per authorization forms I signed last Tuesday." Her mouth twitched. "You signed— You don't have the authority to—" "Claire," I said, walking past her toward the hallway. "You were removed as a co-owner, not frozen. Removed." "I didn't agree to that." "You didn't need to," I replied without turning. "I simply revoked joint authority. Standard clause in the updated trust structure. You should have read the fine print last year when you insisted on moving to digital statements only." I could hear the panic clawing its way up her throat. You changed the trust? I opened the hall closet and pulled out a shoebox, handed it to her like I was offering cookies. Inside were copies of the trust amendments, notarized documents, and a dated summary of every asset transfer we'd made over the last 6 months. She skimmed the top page, then the next. Her breathing hitched, her voice dropped. The house was placed into an irrevocable trust under my name and control 2 months ago. Her head snapped up. You can't do that. We bought it together. I shrugged. Not entirely. The down payment came from my inheritance, remember? You insisted we share everything after that. I just updated the sharing terms. She dropped the box on the couch and spun toward the garage. I waited. 10 seconds later, the door slammed open again. You retitled the car. I did. My car. Our car, I corrected. Registered jointly, insurance paid out of my account. I moved the title last month when I noticed your texts with Eric included phrases like, "Let me drive you next time." Her face flushed red. She stood there like someone had just thrown ice water over her entire body. You're unhinged, she said. No, I replied calmly. I'm organized. You, Jesus, Greg, this is financial abuse. I laughed then, quietly, just one breath out of my nose. You spent the last year emotionally bankrupting me. I'm just formalizing the paperwork. She went silent, and then, because she had nothing else to throw at me, she did what people like Claire always do when the ground disappears. She reached for rage. This is revenge, she spat. That's what this is. No, I said, walking toward her slowly. This is math. She backed into the kitchen. Her hands were shaking now, gripping the edge of the counter for balance. I didn't freeze you out, Claire, I said, voice low. You stepped out. I just locked the doors behind you. She stared at me. Really stared. Like she was seeing me for the first time in years. Not the guy who folded her laundry. Not the guy who stayed quiet while she flirted at dinner parties. Not the safe guy, the man who kept receipts. And now, she was realizing there was nowhere soft left to land. Not in our accounts. Not in our house. Not even in the car she once called her escape pod. She opened her mouth again, but whatever words she planned to use, whatever script she'd rehearsed in her head, died before they could surface, because now she understood. I hadn't just caught her. I'd planned for after. It started with the group chat. Claire's yoga crew, 7 women, all bendy and self-righteous, the kind who post gratitude selfies with captions like, "Healing isn't linear," had a private thread she was addicted to. Most days, it was just smoothie recipes and gossip about other women's husbands, but that Thursday morning, Melissa dropped the bomb. No preamble, no emoji, just a single screenshot followed by, "You might want to ask Claire about this." The image? That photo from the hotel bar. Claire's hand on Eric's knee, a smirk that said everything she thought was secret. It hit the thread like a grenade. Claire didn't even have time to explain before the typing bubbles disappeared and the silence began. One left the group. Another changed her profile pic from a retreat selfie with Claire to a solo one on the beach. She called it aesthetic rebranding. Claire found out from her phone's notification Amanda has left the group. She tried to run damage control, but damage control doesn't work when everyone has already screenshotted your hypocrisy. Turns out it's hard to lead breathwork meditations when people are whispering about your breathless reunion with your ex in a hotel bar. Then her sister called, not the one she only texted on holidays. No, this was the one who knew the real Claire. The version with the mean streak and the shopping addiction. The one who watched her climb into our marriage like it was a lifeboat and swore she'd never let go, even while she drilled holes into the hull. You really thought he wouldn't find out? Her sister asked, voice dripping with a mix of exhaustion and amusement. He wasn't supposed to. Claire, he's a consultant. His entire career is literally about finding out things people don't want him to know. And you went for the ex-boyfriend who peaked in 2008? Click. She didn't call back. Next was Eric, or more precisely, the lack of Eric. Claire texted him that afternoon, then called, left a voicemail, then another. Nothing. Finally, a reply. Please don't contact me again. Melissa and I are trying to rebuild. This was a mistake. That was the word that gutted her. Mistake, not passion, not connection, not destiny. Just an error, a miscalculation, a regrettable oversight. And the next morning, she showed up to work wearing a blouse I'd never seen her wear, a high collar thing, stiff, like she was bracing for combat. She barely spoke to me on the way out, but I noticed the edge in her voice was gone. She was quieter now, smaller. At 10:22 a.m., her boss forwarded her a vague but uncomfortable email. No name, no signature, just a block of text and a few lines pasted from Claire's messages to Eric, ones I'd selected carefully, removed context from, and let speak for themselves. He doesn't even see me anymore. He's just filler. I think about you during dinner sometimes in bed. I never said it came from me. I never needed to. When Claire got home that evening, she didn't speak, she didn't cry, she just walked into the kitchen, opened a bottle of wine, and stood staring at the wall like it owed her an explanation. I didn't ask how her day went. I was outside, mowing the lawn. She watched me from the window. I saw her reflection in the glass, her face blank, no makeup, hair tied back sloppily, like she didn't know who to be anymore. I finished the lawn, changed the porch light, repainted the mailbox numbers, little things, mundane things, all the things I used to do while she texted Eric, "I'm married to a man who's obsessed with lawn stripes." She used to mock that about me. Now she just stared. That weekend we passed each other like ghosts in the same house. She tried to play normal. Laundry, soft jazz in the background, lit a candle, the one that smelled like sandalwood and desperation. But the phone stayed silent. No yoga invites, no sister calls. Eric didn't message. Her boss didn't ask her to stay late. Even the dog from next door, who used to run to her, now barked when she passed the fence. She was slipping, not loudly, not publicly, silently, like a social death by 1,000 glances. And me? I didn't gloat, I didn't taunt. I folded laundry, paid bills, drank coffee, read the paper, because when the world starts pulling away from someone like Claire, you don't need to lift a finger. You just let gravity do the rest. Claire got served between meetings, right there in the sleek glass office where she liked to strut like a LinkedIn thought leader, designer heels clicking down the hall, iced coffee always in hand, flirting just enough with the younger guys to stay relevant. A man in a blue polo with a clipboard walked in like a delivery driver. She smiled reflexively. She always smiled at men in uniforms. Then he said her name. "Claire Madsen?" She blinked. "Yes." He handed her the envelope. "You've been served." Her smile evaporated. She didn't open it in the hallway, not with eyes watching. She walked briskly to her office, shut the door, yanked the blinds closed. Then, hands trembling, she peeled the seal back like it might explode. First page, petition for divorce, dissolution of marriage. Second page, a clean breakdown of assets, trusts, and titles. Not a list of things to split, just a summary of what she no longer had access to. The phrasing was brutally clinical. Transferred, assigned, irrevocable. Not one word she could negotiate. Then came the thick packet. Section A, electronic correspondence, printed screenshots, Claire's words, Eric's replies, time-stamped, archived, pulled from cloud backups she didn't even remember setting up. Section B, photographic evidence, candid shots. Claire leaning across a bar table toward Eric, lips too close. Claire stepping into his car at night. Claire walking into the hotel lobby with a smile she hadn't worn at home in years. Section C, timeline of deception, meticulously organized, dates, gaps, discrepancies in stories. Greg's work trips that aligned perfectly with her impromptu girls' nights. A side-by-side comparison of Claire's claims versus reality, footnoted like an academic paper. Final page, a single sentence in bold. Acknowledgement required by end of week. No threats, no demands, just a deadline. She sat there for a long time, motionless, eyes locked on the name signed at the bottom. Gregory Madsen. No with regret, no sincerely, just the name, sharp as glass. An hour later she called. I let it ring twice before picking up. Her voice came through like static underwater. "Greg." I didn't speak. "I got it," she whispered. "Nothing from me. Please," she said, and now her voice was quivering, unraveling at the seams. "We can fix this. I'll go to counseling. I'll tell everyone it was a mistake. We'll figure it out." Still silent. "I was stupid, okay? I was lonely. I didn't know how to tell you I needed more." I let out a breath, then said only one thing. You needed more? A pause. I gave you a house, a name, 15 years of loyalty. I buried my own needs just to make you feel whole, Claire, and you needed more. I didn't mean it like that. Click. I hung up. Not fast, not dramatic, just final. I set the phone down and returned to my spreadsheet. That night, she sent a long email, no subject line, just a wall of text, regret, panic, nostalgia weaponized in sentence form. Remember Paris? Remember that Sunday we made pancakes and listened to Fleetwood Mac? I still love you. I didn't reply. I didn't even read past the first paragraph. Love doesn't look like betrayal in disguise. Claire had spent years holding the remote control of our marriage, pausing and fast-forwarding to whatever moment suited her narrative. But now, suddenly, the battery died, and the screen went black. She wanted control. Now she had to ask permission just to speak, and I wasn't granting it. It was Communion Sunday, quiet, sober, the kind of service where even the coughs echo off the stained glass. I'd been going to that church for 20 years, sat in the same pew, third row from the front, aisle seat next to the Jenkins couple, who always whispered updates about their grandkids during the sermon, the kind of place where people knew your middle name, your favorite casserole, and when you looked off. Claire hadn't stepped foot in that building in over a decade, said it was too performative, said she got her spirituality from yoga and expensive candles. So when I heard the sharp gasp echo through the sanctuary, cutting straight through the choir's soft harmonies, I didn't have to turn around. I already knew. She was standing in the back, mascara streaked down her face, trembling like she'd been dropped from a height. She wasn't dressed for church. Too much perfume, heels too tall, blouse too low. She wanted to be seen, and she was. People turned, some whispered, others stared openly. The organist paused mid-chord. Pastor Ruth glanced toward the doors, eyebrows raised in mild concern. Claire took a step forward, then another, eyes locked on me. "Greg," she whispered, "please." Her voice cracked. She wasn't just crying, she was performing, and she picked the one place where she thought I'd be too kind to ignore her, too God-fearing to hold the line, but I didn't move, didn't flinch. I stood with the rest of the congregation as they bowed their heads and began reciting the Lord's Prayer. When I stepped into the aisle and walked toward the altar, I passed within arm's reach of her. She reached out just slightly like a reflex. I didn't stop, didn't even look at her. I knelt, took communion, and returned to my seat, calm, silent, unshaken. After service, she was gone. Later that week, she tried again. This time, it was my mother's house. I got the call afterward. She showed up uninvited, Mom said, voice steady. Stood on my porch with those big wet eyes and a sob story. And I slammed the damn door. I couldn't help it. I smiled. She insulted my potato salad at Easter, Greg. I've been waiting for this moment for years. Claire didn't give up. The next day, a bouquet arrived at my office. Calla lilies, my mother's favorite. She knew what that meant. Trying to curry favor through memory and guilt. I didn't open the card, handed the whole thing to the intern, and told her to donate it to the retirement home down the street. Old people deserve flowers more than unfaithful wives deserve forgiveness. 3 days later, my attorney received a call from hers. Claire's voice reportedly cracked on the first sentence. She was open to dialogue. She was hoping for reconciliation. She was ready to do the work. Her lawyer, more direct, said she wanted to negotiate the terms of the divorce, maybe find middle ground, something that honored the past. I sent one reply. There's nothing to negotiate. She already made her choice. I'm just honoring it. That was it. No threats, no bargaining, just truth. Claire thought if she could make enough noise, pull enough emotional levers, drag enough people into the circus, I'd cave, that I'd suddenly remember I was the nice one. She didn't understand that the nice one died the day she laughed about Eric being more exciting than me over dinner with our neighbors. Now, every attempt she made to manipulate looked smaller, more desperate, pathetic. The public tears, the porch theatrics, the bouquet she probably couldn't afford now that her accounts were closed. Each one chipped away at the illusion she'd built, that she was in control, that she could fix this, that Greg was still the same man she used to roll her eyes at while texting other men under the table. She kept trying to rewrite the ending, but I'd already closed the book. The email came at 2:11 a.m. Of course it did. Claire always fired her worst shots in the dark, late-night ambushes laced with passive aggression, sent when she thought I'd be asleep, hoping I'd wake up confused, softened, too groggy to fight back. The subject line was just one word: enough. I opened it on my phone, standing barefoot in the kitchen, stirring coffee I didn't even want. She'd finally gone full desperation mode. Her message was a mix of rage and faux vulnerability, the kind she used to use after picking a fight at dinner and then crawling into bed like nothing happened. "If you keep dragging this out," she wrote, "I'll tell everyone what really happened. How cold you became, how you stopped touching me, how I felt invisible. You want a clean divorce? Fine. But if you don't settle this quietly and fairly, I'll tell everyone you emotionally abandoned me, my friends, my family, your family, the church. Let's not make this uglier than it has to be." There it was, her final weapon, the emotional neglect card, the last-minute rebrand. She wasn't the liar, the cheater, the manipulator. She was the victim. I was the man who pushed her into someone else's arms by being too dependable, too quiet, too safe. I read it once, then again, then I opened a folder on my desktop labeled Ace in Hand. It took 2 clicks, drafted a new message to her, and CC'd her lawyer. No subject line, no salutation, just one sentence: "Thought this might refresh your memory." Attached was a PDF, a screenshot of a message Claire sent to Eric exactly 2 years and 3 months ago. I still remember the night I found it. It was buried in a deleted chat thread she didn't realize her backup had preserved, written while I was at a conference in Phoenix, killing myself working 14-hour days so we could afford her stupid wellness retreat in Sedona. The message read, "He's boring, but he pays the bills. You're the one I think about when he's talking about insurance deductibles or fixing the damn garage door. I don't love him. I just live with him." And beneath that, "Someday I'll come back to you. I'm just waiting for the right moment." But here's the kicker, the real jewel. Eric had replied, "Put that in writing." And she did. She signed her next message with her full name, so I included the full exchange, all 5 messages, one after the other, no commentary, no legal jargon, just truth, undeniable, indelible, infuriating. I hit send, set the phone down, sipped my now lukewarm coffee. 15 minutes later, read receipt. 30 minutes later, another. Silence followed. No reply, no new threats, no midnight hysterics, not even from her attorney. I imagine the call between them was short, probably started with, "What the hell is this?" and ended with, "We should reconsider our position." Claire had always thought leverage was about emotion, guilt, tears, performance. She didn't understand that real leverage is proof. It's the thing you pull out when they think they've got you cornered, and you flip the entire building on its head. She used to call me boring, predictable. She forgot that predictable men tend to be very good at planning, at collecting, at waiting, and when they hit back, they don't yell, they just forward the file. She had one last match in her hand. I drowned it in gasoline, and now she was holding nothing but wet ashes. The envelope was cream-colored, thick, pretentious, the kind of stationery Claire used when she wanted to feel important. No return address, just my name written in looping cursive that used to charm me before I knew what was behind it. I didn't open it right away. I set it on the kitchen table, stared at it like it might start speaking on its own. Then I walked outside, watered the rosemary bush she always hated because it smelled too aggressive, and watched the neighbor's kid wobble past on a too big bike. When I came back in, I slid the letter out. It was long, 4 pages, front and back, written in her handwriting, not a single crossed-out word, as if she'd rehearsed every sentence. She started with, "Greg, this isn't a plea, just a conversation." That was the first lie. Then came the flashbacks. "I remember your laugh when we watched those awful black and white movies, and I still think about that trip to Vancouver when we got caught in the rain and danced anyway." She wrote like we were in a novel, like she hadn't weaponized every one of my silences, hadn't used my steadiness as an excuse to chase chaos, like she hadn't detonated our life just to see if she could survive the blast. Page 2 was regret. I lost myself. I thought I needed more, but I just needed to remember who I was with you. Page 3 was desperation. Let's just talk, just once. No lawyers, just us. Page 4, a pathetic line. I still remember your hands. That was the moment I stopped reading. I folded the pages once, then again. I stood in front of the fireplace, struck a match, and watched it burn corner by corner. The paper curled, blackened, cracked in silence. Not a dramatic bonfire, just enough to feel final. No music, no tears, just the smell of ink and perfume turning into smoke. That night, I sat at my desk and opened the safe, removed the folder labeled Estate and Legacy, took out every document where her name still lived, medical proxies, secondary beneficiaries, old contingencies. I replaced them all. Her name didn't belong in my future. I updated my will. The new one was cleaner, shorter. My niece, my godson, the local shelter where I'd started volunteering on weekends. Claire used to joke I had a savior complex. She never considered I might save myself first. Then I stood, walked over to the keypad by the front door, the one she used to memorize like a spy movie character, and I reset it, not just the code, the entire system. Biometric only now, my fingerprint, my code, not hers, never again. I opened the front door and stepped outside. The air was cold, sharp, still. The street was empty except for a cat slinking under a parked car and a street lamp humming quietly, like it was trying to stay awake. I stood there a long time. No phone in my hand, no letters in my pocket, no ghosts behind me. Claire hadn't just been removed from my life. She had been erased, softly, cleanly, completely. She thought she could twist the narrative, rewrite the ending. But I'd already penned the final line. And now, finally, the story was silent.